Longhorn Nation, we're back.
With that ATX vibe.
I think that's beautiful right there.
With that ATX vibe.
Austin, Texas, baby. Longhorn Nation, we're back.
All right, we're back. You like our new intro, Megan?
I love it. I love it. I already got some compliments on it. It's you killed it.
Cool. All right, welcome to another episode of Fire the Cannon. I'm Rocky.
I'm Megan, and we are Fire the Cannon. All right, y'all. We've got a lot
because it's so low.
I know. We've got a lot to talk about today. You may notice we are in different locations, unlike normal. Rocky, what are you up to? Where are you at?
So we have a wedding, and this Airbnb we rented. We're in Schulenburg, Texas. This Airbnb we rented is an old, like 40s, 50s gas station. It's so cool, and they've decked it all inside, like really retro Happy Days looking. There's a jukebox that really works here, and they have little candy machines, gumball machines, and just neat little, not overdone. It's still pretty modern, very modern inside, but fun retro stuff. And outside the front, it's the full driving gas station but they've turned the overhead driveway into like a patio upstairs and spiral stairs. But it has like the old retro concrete dinosaur,
That's super cool.
It's a pretty cool little spot. And anyway, so we're here in Schulenburg for our oldest daughter's wedding all weekend, and it's going to be fun. We're going to have a marathon, not a sprint, because so we have rehearsal dinner, and then bridal day, and then wedding, and then brunch, and then we head to the Texas game. So
crazy. Well, and listen, we've got to give her a lot of love, big shout out, because she scheduled a fall wedding properly. She understood it is football season, and as much as you love her, if she got married on a Saturday, you wouldn't be there. So
it would be really, I would have to say, well, let's see what game time is.
Right. So she actually scheduled her wedding ceremony and the reception and everything on a Friday to accommodate football. And y'all, that's how it's done. That is absolutely how it's done during football season. So shout out to Karis and Bradley for considering the football nuts.
Yeah, so. it's gonna be a fun weekend. And that's also why my sound is kind of funny, because I'm in a weird setup today, but that's okay. We're here.
Yeah, you're all right. All right. Well, we do have a ton to talk about. Of course, we're going to preview ULM at Texas, kind of get into the ins and outs, what we're expecting. Of course, we're going to talk injury updates. We're going to talk quarterback controversy, ? We will also take a look at some of Texas's future schedule too, and kind of hash that out and give our predictions and see what we're thinking about the season. Are there realistic expectations? Are there potential trap games here? What we're going to, we'll talk about that a bit. And of course, we're going to talk about top stories in sports. We always got to give a few little fun stories going in there. So, but it is heavy Texas today. We are looking forward to Saturday. Thank y'all for joining us. We appreciate you being here. Let's jump right in. Rocky, we've got ULM coming into DKR, another night game, which I think fans are excited about. This one taking place at 7 p.m. So maybe it'll only be 98 degrees instead of 102 at kickoff. What are you excited for another night game?
The night games are fun because not only just like we have all day to hang out, get there, we get to tailgate and watch other teams play, and that's always fun. You have plenty of time to enjoy the day, see your friends, get there, like you guys set up the best tailgate, eat, hang out, and then the night game, of course, the atmosphere that's happening now at a Texas night game. The drone show, the lights, the cell phones lighting up, the fireworks, everything's bigger and brighter and more party atmosphere at night. The crowd comes, they stay. The heat of the day, they're still staying till the fourth quarter, but people really stay when it goes into the night because you don't have the sun beating on you, or
Not
it's not
quite
getting
as
too
miserable.
cold. It's like really, it gets nicer and nicer throughout the evening. So everyone loves the good night game.
For sure, for sure. No, I think it'll be exciting. I think we're going to get another drone show. My little heart's hoping that it's over the east side again, so I can see it again. The last game was the first time I was able to actually watch the drone show. I've been to all of them, but they're always above the north end zone, which is where I sit. So I'm excited to see that if it comes up again. So do you think that this night game is going to help the atmosphere in the sense that it's ULM, maybe not quite as much excitement from the fans as some of the marquee games that are coming into DKR? But now that it's a night game, we know that. And now that a certain quarterback has been announced, do you think that changes things for fans? Or you think it's going to be about the same?
Everyone's excited because we're now the number one team in the country, which hasn't happened in 16 years. Texas being ranked number one. And I saw a funny
That's crazy
stat
to
that
me. That's crazy to me.
Kyle Umling said that the Aggies haven't been number one in 25,000 days or something like that, 60-something years.
Yeah,
So
it's
funny.
It's so crazy to me to think that, of course, we know we're coming out of one of the not so great decades of Texas football. I think it's safe to say we are all very happy where we're at right now in the trajectory of this program. But it's still crazy hearing that Texas hasn't been ranked number one in the nation for 16 years. That's a shocking number to me. And I think a telltale sign of how down the program was. And again, where we're heading and where we think we'll be.
But it also speaks to how certain programs have dominated the number one spot for so long. And, at most of that time, Alabama, Georgia, some of that was Clemson, Ohio State's had the number one ranking. There's been just a handful of teams really that have dominated the number one spot for the last 16 years. So there's a lot of teams who haven't been number one in more than 16 years. But for Texas to be, even if people are going to be nitpicky that, it should still be Georgia, or it should still be, or Alabama is looking really good, or Tennessee, there's arguments for a few teams to be ranked number one, to just be in the conversation and for enough people to believe you are the deepest, most talented team. And I heard what somebody was talking about, Florida State, they were undefeated and they lost their QB and they got thrown out of the playoffs, right? But here, Texas' QB needs a few weeks to get things together, and Texas rises to number one.
Yeah, that's a great point. So
I didn't make that point. I heard other people talking about it, and I can't remember where I heard it because I listen to so many people, but that was pretty interesting. Yeah.
No, but again, I think it speaks to the depth of the program and where Texas is going. We know that we talked about this on our podcast a little bit earlier in the week. Arch balled out. Look, we know Quinn is our number one quarterback. We know that there's not a controversy, but what a fortunate position to be in, to be able to lose your number one Heisman contender quarterback and still pick up where you left off and have such a great quarterback backup in Arch Manning. So I think the confidence is really high. And I think I don't know of many other programs in the nation that can say we are comfortable plugging in our number two and feeling like there's not going to be a ton of drop off, So I think that's a really great position to be in. Looking at this number one, let's talk about number one a little bit. I think we've got a clip from Sark.
So let's compare and contrast, because we're having fun as fans. We're excited. Some fans are pretty level-headed, I don't want to be number one. It's rat poison. Some fans are all out. And then we have the team that's pretty level-headed. So let's compare the two. It's pretty funny. So we have a good clip of Sark at the press conference talking about what it's like to be rated this high and how they're going back to work. So we'll play that first.
We've had a very consistent messaging since the day I got here. And, you have vision and goals of where your program's going to be in the future. This is what I was anticipating where we would be. And it was probably hard for a lot of other people to see when you're 5-7. But we had a vision and a goal of where our program could be and the way we were going to get there. And so the messaging has been very consistent. I just don't think now's the time for me to start to change, right? We've got here because we're consistent. We've got a formula for success that we believe in. I'm always honest with our players. I'm very transparent with them, and I think they appreciate that. And so that part's not going to change either. But the key component to that is better never rests, right? We have to continue to try to improve, because we're going to need better play than we've had through 3 games to go try to accomplish what we want to accomplish. And so we're really more focused on our process than we are what other people think of us right now. It's just about what are we going to do the next opportunity that we get.
All right. So we have Sark here, like level-headed, focused. We have a plan. It's pretty interesting to say, like, we saw ourselves. We were going to be here. We were going to be number one. They had that vision and they had that plan. But let's compare that. It's so funny. Let's compare that to one of our favorite. We have Care Bear Kieran. He's one of our favorites on Twitter. He's hilarious. And this is him just going all out with, number one, we're going to be
obnoxious. The worst thing for college
We love
football
you.
was Texas and Miami being good again, because the fan bases of both of those schools are going to be absolutely unbearable. And I'm one of them. I watched this program lose to Kansas 3 years ago, and now we're on your ass. We're going to beat the crap out of OU after they beat us last year and made shirts. We're playing Georgia the week after, and we're going to smack them too. They went out there and struggled against Kentucky. Saban's no longer here to save you, college football. We are getting active. You better buckle up, Georgia, because we're coming, and we're coming fast. I remember all those jokes y'all made about us. We came to the SEC. We were going to lose to Vandy. We couldn't even beat Kansas. Our special teams coach's monkey bit a child on Halloween. Those days are gone. We really in the SEC now. It's about football over everything. We don't play school. We're getting degrees in catfish noodling and yoga poses. That boy Arch is crazy, and you're going to have to deal with him for another 2 years. This is how I'm acting after we got ranked number one for 2 days. Imagine when we don't lose for the next 10 years.
Listen,
Imagine when we don't lose for the next 10 years.
I love the energy. I really do. You know, I
Say it
have
with
said
your
this
chest.
after the first win against Colorado State. I was high on Texas. I felt good about where we're at, and I absolutely, and I stand by this. If Texas continues to roll, and we are the team I think we are, I am going to be even more unsufferable on Twitter than I am already. Like, I'm excited for it. So yeah, I think the contrast of fans being super hyped up, super excited, that's okay, man. Let's let our Longhorn PTSD go. Let's work through it. This is our therapy right now. It's okay. This is a safe space. You can say things that you might not have been comfortable saying 4 or 5 years ago. Now, we can talk big. Texas is starting to back it up, but of course, like we talked about, the important focus is the team isn't buying into the rat poison. The team isn't listening to the hype. They're focused. They're really keyed in and preparing for games like they do each game. That might come as a surprise to the ULM coach, who had some interesting comments earlier this week about Texas and how they prep. Do you see anything different, Rocky? I mean, do you have any reason to believe this team isn't going to be prepping the same way? Like, let's have a real conversation about that.
We know, like, if Sark has a disciplined team, the culture is there, the accountability is there. He even talked earlier this week about how the coaches are coaching hard and the players are taking that hard coaching and they're loving it. Michael Taft this week, one of my favorite players, Mookie, they talked to him about the number one ranking, and he said, if we just settle right now, then we're not going to be legendary. Our goal coming here was to be legendary, to get our 2024 on the DKR Stadium. Like, they have big goals. They know being ranked number one in week 4 gives you nothing, right? It doesn't guarantee you anything. So they know that. They know the work they've put in. They're focused. And for, like you mentioned, the ULM coach, people that think they're not focused or that they're not going to prepare, like, they know everyone's coming after them. They're coming after them before when you're Texas. But if you're Texas ranked number one, you were going to get everybody's best shot already. Now you're really going to get focused teams coming in and want to be the one that, kicks you down. So they're focused, they're disciplined. Yeah. We've seen, after the games that the players talk about, we're going back to the locker room. We're going to get back to the film. We're going to get home, like, stay out of trouble. Like, they have their eyes on a big prize.
Yeah, absolutely. So in case you guys haven't heard what we're talking about, where we're referencing, the ULM head coach during his presser came in and had this to say about Texas and how Texas is going to prepare.
Texas, they know they plan on, against a mediocre group of 5 team. Let's be honest. They're not going to prepare like they normally do. That's why we are, and we're going to try to go do our best and, see what the chips fall.
Look, while I respect,
they're not going to prepare.
Okay, look, I can almost appreciate that sentiment, right? I think maybe in years past, Texas would maybe drop off. They've been known to play up or down to competition. This team feels very differently focused than teams of the past. But let's just talk human nature for a minute. Are you going to prepare? Are you going to go quite as hard when you've got ULM coming up as you did for Michigan? Were you prepping preseason, certain games, certain plays against ULM like you were prepping certain games, certain plays against Michigan in preseason, right? Like I can appreciate the sentiment there, and there's probably a kernel of truth. But why in God's name, as a mediocre group of 5 team, would you as a head coach then go in and motivate Texas? Like if you thought that we weren't preparing, why would you call attention to that and make it even worse? That I respect a coach that puts away coach speak, but this feels like it wasn't a really well calculated comment. What do you think about it?
And if they were going to be lazy, they ain't now. But I think too, like I can kind of talk about this game a little bit. We know it was announced today that Quinn is still QB1, but he's not playing this weekend. Arch is getting the start. So, but in addition to Arch getting the start, there's probably a couple more players that are going to rest or get limited time. Maybe Jaden Blue still rest or get limited time. Jelani McDonald maybe still rests or gets limited time. So there's a few players. They don't have to it's a 45-point spread. You take every team seriously and you play your best football and you prepare. But there are some players who are going to get more opportunity this week to play. And don't tell them this is not a serious game that they won't prepare. This is their opportunity to prove they deserve game time, that they're a D1 athlete too, or that they're earning spots, on the roster. And, it's always a competition with Sark. He's very open about it. It's a competition all the time for playing time. And this is an opportunity to get trust, as a receiver, or get trust on the O-line, or try, there's so much opportunity here that the players know is an opportunity still for them to come out and compete. So right. I don't think they were going to take them lightly or not prepare as hard, or however he said it anyway. But it's an opportunity for a lot of players to come out and play some good ball. It's still at home, night game, night crowd, 100,000. This is still one of the biggest stages in the country for college football. So their opportunities there. They're not going to take it lightly.
Right. Well, and I also think that maybe that number 1 ranking, they're going to wear that with a chip on their shoulder. If they come out and look like shit, everybody's going to say, look, we told you so, right? Texas doesn't deserve to be number 1. If they stumble against ULM or they have a close game, like God forbid, like Georgia did against Kentucky. I don't think that's a remote possibility. But if Texas doesn't come out and just obliterate ULM, well, then the conversations are, Texas doesn't deserve to be there. Texas hasn't worked hard. Oh, it's the same old Texas, right? So I think the motivation is definitely still there. I think that's something we're going to see Texas play hard through. And I agree with your point totally. Sark's been talking about nitpicking little things. After big blowout games, he's still finding things to go, look, we didn't do this well. We didn't execute here. We got caught flat-footed here, so there's always stuff to work on. It's never a finished product. And I just feel like this was, again, I appreciate that he's not using coach speak, but it just seemed like a maybe not so well thought out comment. And also, if I'm your player and you call me mediocre, man, come on. Like your own coach is dogging on you. I don't know. It just doesn't seem, maybe that's just me. It just doesn't seem like a great motivator there. So
yeah. And two, there was the DC, the ULM DC also made a comment that, we have guys on our team that have played Arch before and beaten Arch before. And so we're not scared of him. And it's one thing to say we have players who are, from that area, they're confident in their abilities, they're experienced with him. And then you have, Danny Davis from Austin American Statesman saying, for what it's worth, Arch Manning lost to 5 high schools and 1 Florida school, and nobody on this roster was on those teams.
So now, not only that,
we have some people going back with receipts being like, maybe a player transferred in or whatever, but to say they had several players that beat Arch, so they're not scared of him, and it turns out they can't find one on the current roster that was on
that might not be true either. Yeah,
it might not be true, but you know what? Whatever pumps them up, I guess. If you're not scared, you're not scared. Good. Nobody should be scared. That doesn't mean you don't respect.
Right,
And
right.
Arch went out there and balled out, made national media, had broke several records. And not that he's QB1, we already talked about that, but nobody in the country has a backup like Arch Manning on their roster where they won't miss a beat. Yes, there's changes in the offense, and we'll get into that. The way Sark will use Arch differently than he would use Quinn, but nobody in the country would pass up Quinn as their QB1 and Arch as their QB2 over their two quarterbacks now, right? So
Yeah.
to say you're not scared of him, that's fine, but we know you respect him because the entire country every national media person was breaking down each of his throws, all 12 of his throws, and several of his runs, and he did a lot for not having the QB1 reps. And this week he's getting QB1 reps all week, so it's going to be good. It's going to be interesting.
I agree. Yeah. So let's talk about ULM a little bit. We're going in, like you mentioned earlier, the spread is 44.5. Has that moved up to 45? I know it's been kind of fluctuating.
I just saw again 44.5 today. It's gone up and down around 45. Okay. What are you thinking about that number? It's really early, but what are you thinking about that number?
To me, that's a crazy number. I think this is a little bit of I still have to train this out of myself to see such a huge spread and go, is Texas going to are they going to put away teams that they should put away? But this year, again, training it out of myself of that Pavlovian response, right? Yeah, I mean, by all accounts, by looking at these teams, how they're matching up, I think Texas covers this spread. I mean, that to me is a reasonable spread for the expectations with ULM. We'll give our picks a little bit earlier, but yeah, I'm just going to come out and say it. It's a crazy number for a spread, but I do think Texas is fully capable of putting it on them, even with Arch, even with our starting quarterback sitting for this game due to injury. So I don't know. Let's break down ULM. What are you thinking? Are you nervous about this spread? You think it's too much?
I think the spread is just a number for people who want to bet money, but I think 45 is too much considering that there's going to be a lot of rotation, a lot of different people playing. If Texas can drop 100 on them, they might, but will they in this kind of time? And then ULM, their style is more trying to run the ball. If Texas can take away the run, they don't really have anything else. They don't throw it much. So I think that the opportunity for ULM needs to try to run that clock, which could limit possessions for Texas, but we've seen the defense be so strong, and there have been solid stopping the run other than a couple little leaky things that I'm sure they're working on. So I don't know. I think 44.5 is too high. I could see 35 to 40. 45 would be like, wow. If they did that with the second quarterback and 2s and 3s getting lots of game time, that would be amazing.
Texas beat UTSA by more than 45. And that was a game. I would say that UTSA is a better team than ULM at this point. So I don't think 45 is an unfair number. And like you mentioned, look, ULM is pretty one-dimensional, as was Michigan, and ULM is not Michigan, and Texas shut them down right until the end, where Texas had our 3s and 4s in, and Michigan really started to run a little bit, take up more of that clock. Up until the fourth quarter, the time of possession for Texas and Michigan was very lopsided. Even though Michigan is a run-first team and they try to dominate the clock, Texas flipped that script. They stopped the run. They had the ball more. I don't see ULM doing anything more aggressive or better than Michigan did, right, as a run-first team. So, yes, I think that's the game plan. I think it's going to be, we know, General Booty is their, again, best football name ever, is their quarterback. But
General Booty,
not Major, General.
Basic Booty, just General Booty.
But again, he's not going to be slinging the ball left and right. If Texas can force them into that kind of position, I think we do see a lot more turnovers. I think we see some busted plays. I think we see pressure on the quarterback. Texas is stopping the run like ULM is planning, which, again, I don't see any way that ULM runs all over Texas. I just don't. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think what's coming together is, especially on the defensive side of the ball, is how our D line is really working with the edges. We're seeing a little more pressure come. The sacks are starting to come, and this it will help because we don't have to worry about them. We don't have to worry about them flinging the ball all over the field, and then our defense getting divided somehow. I think they have a pretty good plan. The thing is that they're already pretty one-dimensional, so it won't take long, I don't think, for them to make them no-dimensional. But 45 points spread for the offense, woo, that just still seems to be that's a lot of points. Anytime it's a lot of points.
For me, it's kind of that sticker shock when you first see that number, but when you really start to break it down, it makes sense to me. I really think it does. So so let's talk about defense a little bit. Again, we'll talk about keys on defense for Texas, and then we'll get into what our expectations are on offense as well. So you mentioned getting some of those pressures that's starting to come together a little bit better for Texas. Are you concerned with the lack of sacks? Texas is not a ton of sacks. Starting to see some turnovers. Do you think that's a concern for Texas? Do you think this is a game that the defense breaks out and has a bunch of sacks, a bunch of turnovers?
No, I'm not worried about the sacks because, one, they're coming, but also they're getting the turnovers. They're getting the interceptions. They're bringing the pressure. I'll take the turnovers over the sacks any day, right? They help, but they're getting the turnovers. They're forcing the errant throws. They're getting in the face of the quarterback. They're disrupting the quarterback. I think that's good. And at the end of the day, like we talked about, they only have 19 points allowed in 3 games.
Yeah.
A busted coverage on a long run last weekend was the only points they gave away. A late touchdown at Michigan, I don't like saying garbage time, but a time that didn't make a difference in the game. So that's it in 3 games. They haven't had this in 40 years since they've allowed less than 19 points in the first 3 games. So this is pretty amazing defense. So if it's always like there's 100 different defensive stats, right? More than that. If one's not looking great, but another one looks insanely amazing and the turnovers are coming, they're winning the turnover battle and they're not giving up points and they're getting off the field on 3rd down, which was a huge question even just, a couple of seasons ago. The defense is just going to keep improving. They're on track. They're so versatile. The talent, they're fast, they're physical. I'm not worried about a sack number. What about you?
I'd have to agree with that. Like at the end of the day, Texas has been winning and winning big. So yes, I mean, numbers are great. Stats are lovely to look at afterwards, but at the end of the day, Texas is dominating in their games. And I agree. I think this is a team that we're seeing constantly improve, even at this point in the season. So it's not a concern to me right now. Now, I would like to get those numbers up a little bit just to make sure that we're getting that pressure and pushing before we go into SEC play, right? Maybe have a little teaser against Mississippi State, because that is going to be important when the competition starts increasing and the quality of the teams starts getting better and better throughout our season. Getting pressure to the quarterback, making sure that we're forcing bad throws, that we're confusing the offense, that we're masking coverages and things like that. That's gonna make more of a difference as we get on. So, am I concerned about the number? No, but I would like to see continual improvement as we move on towards SEC play. And again, I want to point this out. So Leona Lefau, having a quietly great season, in my opinion. I just saw this stat. He's the only linebacker in SEC with multiple run stuffs, a sack, and no missed tackles this season. So wow. We're hearing a lot of other names, but I feel like he's quietly putting together, statistically, a really good season and making some differences on defense. Again, wealth of riches, right? We're an embarrassment of riches as far as depth goes. We're starting to see those players pull up. Jahdae Barron, of course, having what a lot would consider as a really great season. Who do you see being a breakout player on defense for Texas for this game?
For this game, who we've seen flashes of that's probably going to get more game time this time is Ty Anthony Smith. We've seen him, the young freshman. We've seen him have a few flashes lately, and he's getting a little more game time each game. So I think, we're familiar with Anthony Hill Jr. and what he can do, but I think we're going to see a little bit more of Ty Anthony Smith, which is which is pretty cool because he's the flip from A&M that was committed to the Aggies last year and flipped to Texas when they had the coaching turnover. And I'm glad you mentioned Leona Lafau. I think he's going to keep coming because, he has these SEC stats. We saw Jade Barron. This is now the highest graded DB, SEC DB. And, we've seen now SEC every week, SEC players of the week have been Longhorns, offensive and defensive. The SEC has been in there. So for, all the talk before, oh, Texas isn't SEC ready. You're not SEC ready. You don't have the roster. Yeah, they do. They're statistically, once we start playing each other, which will start next weekend with Mississippi State. But once we start playing into the SEC schedule, we'll know more. But so far, the talent is standing out on the Texas roster. And a lot of the other teams haven't played but one SEC game, if any, already too. So I think those are some players that I'm excited to see more of, especially Tyann Smith. Because anytime you can get a flip from another school and then they break out and they're really being developed and they're young and they're getting to play, that just Flipmas is coming, and that always like, ooh, see this guy flips Texas and look at him out there balling.
Right.
What do you think? Who are you looking for on defense?
Yeah, look, I think your boy Mookie is gonna be a leader here. I think you're gonna see him be more vocal. I think him and Jade Barron are doing a really great job of reading but leading as well. So I think we'll see Mookie have a good game here. I really do. But I agree. I think this is a great opportunity. This is going to be another one of those games for Texas where the point is to rotate a bunch of players in, get that real-time experience, get real game time experience, and have a lot of guys in the depth chart get in and make plays. So, like I said, I'll be looking for Mookie out there. I'll be rooting for him for you for sure. But yeah, I think Texas is really going to step up defensively. Like I mentioned earlier, I just don't see a way that ULM forces a run against this Texas defense. I just don't. So let's talk a little bit about the offense for Texas. What are some keys for Texas offense to have success against ULM and maybe put up the 45 needed to beat the spread here? What are you looking for?
All right. So Arch Manning, we know, is QB for this game. He's getting the start. Trey Owens, hopefully we get to see him by late third quarter. Hopefully things are going well where Trey Owens gets some quality time too. What I'm looking for is what's been kind of struggling is the run game. I know we have depth issues, injury issues. Jaden Blue didn't even play last week. Travian Wisner went out with the in and out with the little injury. So, and then he didn't come back in. And then we were with Jared Gibson, again, leading the team in number of carries as a true freshman. The freshmen are just leading the statistics. There's a lot of freshmen making an impact on this game, which is good early in the season because they're getting lots of good work.
Right.
But I think what we're looking for is a calm, collected Arch, and we saw that when he came in the other day. Just an offensive line that helps him with the running game. We know he can throw the ball all over the field, but I would like to see a little more run game established. That's kind of what I'm still looking for, because we can't go into the SEC schedule without a solid run game. So hopefully we have Jaden Blue maybe not next week, even if it's not playing this week, maybe by next week, a little more run, because then you get a week off and then it's OU, Georgia, then it's coming. So that's what I'm looking for, a little more run game. It'll help Arch out too.
For sure. So let me ask this. Do you think that depth is an issue as we're looking at this, at the beginning of the season? We talk about how stacked it is, against Michigan. Again, we saw 3s and 4s come in, but that injury bug is rearing its head just a little bit with Quinn out. We just talked about Blue still rehabbing and looking good. We saw
Calvin Banks went out for a bit in the game
Banks
the other day. He came back, but
right. Wisner still a little tender there. Are you at all concerned with the depth with Texas right now? Is this
at running back? Yes, it's starting to pile a little bit. The good thing is right now the schedule, like we said, that Texas is heavily favored in the next couple of games. Then they get a week off. So the good thing is if there ever was a good time for Texas to get time for players to get back to the men, this would be it. Also, with Coach Sark, we know he is a genius play caller and schemer and ways to use talent. And we can see him using the receivers in the run game too. So, he has them in the sweeps and different motions where they're getting the ball on the run, and he's manufacturing more run game that way too. So I think that statistically it looks like a lot of rushing yards, but a lot of that is still coming from some of the receivers that are contributing in that area. So whatever it takes to move the ball, I'm happy. If he trusts the quarterback to throw it, because that's the advantage in that game, then throw it a lot. We saw last week Quinn came out, the first 9 or 10 plays were throwing plays. Like, that's the advantage. You take what the defense gives you. The defense can't, if they're giving you the throw, take the throw over and over, because Quinn can make it, Arch can make it. So, but still, I just would like to see them have a little more consistent run game.
Sure. Well, and I think, I'll bring this up. Arch can run. I think if we are going to be in a point that we're down some running backs and we're trying to keep guys healthy and keep guys, protected, and a little bit concerned about depth in the running back, I think there's a slight advantage with Arch in, because the kid's fast. We saw that. He was outrunning 5-star against UTSA. He was outrunning a 5-star cornerback who had the angle. I just blasted past him. It was pretty impressive to watch him run. We talked about it a little bit during the offseason and spring game. Arch is fast. He can move, and he's not your typical Manning when it comes to using his legs. So, again, if I'm going to seek the silver lining here, if we are down a little bit on running back for this game right now, where we're at in the season, I do feel that having Arch in as the quarterback is a little bit of a benefit for the run game only, right? Like, he can push you there a little bit with the run. He is that dual threat. Again, Quinn can move, but we've had to train some of that Sammy out of him. So, because he used to, he was getting hurt running quite a bit. So he's kind of held back, in my opinion. Quinn's held back on the run plays a little bit more. He's waiting longer. He's more patient. He's finding his open guys, which is great. But I think we're going to see a little bit different play calling with Arch behind center. Again, because of that running ability and just his sheer speed as a quarterback. It's crazy.
I know, but Sark said they're not going to major in it, right? They're not going to have a running quarterback. That's especially when that's your second quarterback, and your backup to the second is now a true freshman. They've got to protect him. They got to be smart, keep him safe. Yes, he's fast, but you don't want a quarterback taking any more hits than they ever have to. Even no matter which quarterback it is, but especially when you're on the backup and you're about to go into conference play, you gotta protect him, keep him safe. But yeah, he is mobile. He can throw on the move. We saw that he had some beautiful passes on the move. So we'll probably see Sark use the offensive line, move around with him a little bit more, maybe a little bit more than they do with Quinn. Another thing too, there's a lot of more pre-snap motion with Quinn than Arch. So maybe they're adding a little bit more to that now that he's had a little more practice with it. That also comes with lots of time and snaps that Quinn has had that Arch has not. So that's something that I'm excited to see with Arch. And like we said, when Arch comes out to the field, even though we know Quinn is QB1, there's just a different mania about it. And it's incredible that it's national mania when Arch comes out, and everyone wants to talk about it and click about it. And there's an excitement about when Arch is on the field. But like Sark said, it's going to be Quinn that brings them to a national championship team. Quinn is the leader of that national championship caliber team. Quinn is still QB1.
Right. Yeah. Ever since Arch committed to Texas, the media wants to drum up this quarterback controversy at Texas. The Mannings have been clear. The coaching staff has been clear. The fans that are paying attention understand there's not a controversy here. And yeah, to your point, Sark said this team is a national championship caliber team. And that's with Quinn Ewers as quarterback one. Like, he made it very clear when announcing that Arch was starting this game that there's no controversy. There's no question. Quinn Ewers is still our guy. He is still our number one quarterback. Shut any conversation, any debate, any controversy talk down. QE is our QB. So You love to hear it. But at moments like this, I'm glad that Arch Manning doesn't really do social media. I'm glad that Quinn is kind of staying off social media because it's just crazy to see. Did you see recently that there's a way too early draft, like NFL draftability? And Arch Manning is at like number 5. Quinn dropped down to like 10 or something like that. It just, come on, people.
Yeah, Arch still has another year until he can be draft eligible anyway. But I know people are going to want to take him when he does come out. They're going to be fighting for him.
For
All
sure.
right.
For sure.
So let's say we know Sark made the comments that Quinn is resting this week. He said if they had to do their SEC injury report now, which the SEC requires, and for SEC matches that they do the injury reports on Wednesdays or whatever game week. So he said Quinn would have been listed as questionable. And let's talk about the injury reports. What are your thoughts on having to give a full injury report now that we're in the SEC? Do you think that's does it help the teams? Would you
No,
rather not give injury reports?
Yeah, I mean, anytime that you can keep things close to the chest, I think that's an advantage for your team. Especially when you're talking about, are you preparing for somebody like Quinn Ewers? You preparing for somebody like Arch? Running back situation, who you're preparing for. So yeah, I definitely would not say that it's an advantage to the team to have to release that earlier as far as offense goes, as far as game planning goes. Now, knowing who the other team is going to be playing, yeah, okay, that's helpful, right? So at the end of the day, I think it ends up being kind of a wash. Because it's not like Texas isn't the only team that has to release their injury reports as far as SEC teams go. But no, I wouldn't call it an advantage. I think, you've seen Sark get pretty adamant when people are asking him, how are you preparing? What are you doing? He's like, I'm not going to tell you how I'm preparing. I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing.
Exactly.
I feel like that same kind of mentality is there. I don't want to tell you who's hurt. I don't want to tell you who's starting or, until the last minute. So I give the other team as little time as possible to prepare for the personnel that are going to be in. How about you? Are you worried about it?
I agree. I think it's going to be different having to give them out. I think as a fan, like I want to know on Wednesday who's listed, but it's so easy to just say, oh, they're questionable.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, that doesn't help me either, but I appreciate that Sark mentioned today that yes, Quinn starting, Arch is resting. We know that Quintravian Wisener and Jaden Blue are now game time decisions of whether or not they'll rest or play. There's like they've said all along going into the season, everything they do is about a 15 game. You're going through January 20, right? Trying to get through the 12 games season, hopefully in a conference championship game. Hopefully hosting a playoff game or getting the bye would be nice. But either way, going into the playoffs, going into a championship, like that is what they're planning for. And it helps so much that Sark and a lot of the staff comes from NFL experience where they are used to managing. Now it's a 16, 17 game season, right? 17 game season. And then the playoffs start. And then, you get into all that conference championship, division championships or whatever. So that's, they know what it takes to manage a season over months and months and how that starts early in the season. So lots of rotation, lots of game time for younger players,
Right.
the recovery, the nutrition, like all the things that go into that. And so when you have a game that looks to be winnable unless everything falls apart, right? If you have a game that you're predicted to win by 45 and you have the talent and the depth to give younger players or new, players that are in the depth chart, give them good playing opportunity. That's amazing. I think that really helps. It makes the team better, and it's what's going to get them hopefully through January 20.
Yeah, agreed. Hey, just a quick shout out to CB. Good to see you, buddy. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you being here. And Yusuf too. Thanks, man. We appreciate y'all joining us. Like you said, please hit the like button, hit subscribe. We are live every Thursday at 3 p.m. Central. So we love having y'all here. We love interacting. Give us your thoughts and comments on what you're looking forward to this weekend with Texas versus ULM. I did want to ask you, Rocky, do you feel that on offense, do you feel that we're going to see more mistakes in this game from Arch compared to maybe when he wasn't the starter, just by nature of having more time? Or do you think he's going to be sharp and ready? What are your thoughts here?
I think he's going to be sharp, but nobody's perfect. Like there's going to be times where he makes the wrong read or he's under pressure. So he has to, try to throw it away, but it doesn't make it out of bounds. I mean, there's going to be things like that happens to every quarter, even experienced quarterbacks. But it seems like his personality is pretty calm. And you combine that with really experienced offensive line and receivers. And then you combine that with Sark's play calling. And he's been training with Sark for 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years almost now. So they know each other. He knows what what Arch is good at. He knows he's going to put him in the best position to win. He has all week practicing with the ones. I mean, mistakes are going to happen. He is still young as far as actual reps on the college field. Right. So mistakes are going to happen. But I have a feeling that if he makes a mistake, all of DKR is going to be like, oh, shucks, go get him again, Arch. It's going to be okay because people still believe in the overall talent and skill. And there's going to be timing because he's still new with the receivers who are still new to Texas, right? Golden, Bond, all these receivers that just got here the last offseason, they're still new too to the reps and the running at DKR. So it'll take time, just like, but Sark will put him in the best position to move the ball.
I like that. All right. So I like that you brought up the different receivers that we have, the different targets that Arch potentially could use. Do you think we're going to see a game calling plan more like what we've seen for Colorado State, more like what we saw for UTSA, where it was spreading it around, making sure everybody touches the ball, that Oprah mindset, you get the ball, everybody gets the ball. Do you think we're going to see something like that with Arch, or do you think it's going to be more of there are a few receivers that we know that Arch is comfortable with, and so he's going to be targeting them more and more just by nature of being a younger quarterback? What are you expecting to see in that department?
I think it looks like originally Quinn really favored Golden and Golden and Bond. And then it looks like when Arch came in, probably because he runs with them a little bit more the twos, he was favoring Cook and Wingo. Mm-hmm. Again, the more they all run together, the more he's going to get the ball to everyone. And the way Sark says, some people the ball comes to you in the flow of the game. And then sometimes you can be out there, like Sark said, 20 reps and the ball doesn't come to you. So it's going to be up to Arch, how he's reading the field, how much time he has, where he's comfortable throwing. Those will all come together. But we know so far 8 different Longhorns, thanks to One Stop Horn says, 8 different Longhorns have at least one receiving touchdown through the first 3 games. I don't know how you defend that. Bond has 3, Golden, Cook, Wingo, Helm, Blue, Moore, and Bolden. 8 different receivers have caught a touchdown already for Texas. That's depth at the receiving core, but it does show that they are moving the ball around, like you said. I don't know how you defend that. As a defensive coordinator, usually you say, okay, we got to get this guy out, or we got to double this guy. How do you can't double 5 different pass catchers out there. And that's not even including, Jaden Blue's in there, but we know even the running backs are very involved in the receiving game. So how do you defend that out there? And then you also have to stop, the run inside with Jared Gibson, who's now turning into a power runner.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for pointing him out too, because again, I enjoy watching him run. He is a guy that will put his shoulder down and he'd rather run over you than run around you. And I love that. It gives me, vibes.
Is this what they call Baby Rhino?
Yeah. Again, it gives me like kind of the old school Texas vibes where it's just play some smash mouth football. I'm going to make you stop me. And you better be ready for it. So no, I appreciate that. One thing
Trey Wisner did that too. He had that at Michigan. He had that sideline. He took on that DB like head on. You could hear the crack, the pads cracking.
One other thing I wanted to point out and kind of elaborate on that you brought up earlier is getting movement with that O-line to help Arch out a little bit. Maybe we see more stunts from the O-line. That's something that we know that Sark loves big guys, but not massive guys. He wants athletic, fast O-linemen, athletic, fast, big D linemen, but you're not seeing these monsters. You're not seeing the Bubbas like from, anymore that are just huge dudes that can't move and blow out their knees in 2 seconds, right? You're seeing more athletic, more fit, I mean, watching some of our guys, some of our O-lines pull and be down the field and making that second and third block down the field, they're cooking it. They're moving with our guys as well. I love that you pointed that out. I do think we're going to see a little bit more of that with Arch. Give him some more of those protections, but create some stunts, trick them up, and keep the defense guessing on where our guys are going, where they're running. So I love that very much.
I like that you mentioned that the O-line is blocking well in the run game, because Sark challenged the wide receivers this week to do more of that. He said there's times when the receiver or ball carrier could have gotten more if the blocking downfield was better. So he's really challenging. We were so used to over the last few years having, Jay Witt downfield blocking, Adonai Mitchell, by the end of the season, he was a physical downfield blocker.
Right.
We've seen that over the last few seasons. There's always been somebody that's really working hard downfield, and we see it, but just not consistently enough, I guess, right now for Sark's liking, because he called out those receivers that they need to get downfield and help more. So I'm going to look for that too this week. And we talk a little bit offense now. Like, I'm going to look for that too downfield. Are we really seeing the other guys step up? Because that might be the separator as the season goes on and we really get into crunch time and key big games when it comes to the Oklahoma game, the Georgia game, on and on. I'm going to look to see who is Sark, who's got those downfield blocking happening to really make more separation, and see if that is the key of a little more playing time when the game's more on the line.
Yeah. Hey, CB, I wanted to bring this up. Yeah. What was ULM DC thinking with his comments? We talked about that at the top of the hour, but agreed wholeheartedly. Let's bring this back in. This is where I don't understand making a comment as a coach saying, oh, we're a mid, what was the word?
Here, let's play it again. We'll play it since you mentioned it. It's only a few seconds. Here, we'll play it again for you, CB.
Texas, they know they plan on, against a mediocre group of 5 team. Let's be honest. They're not going to prepare like they normally do. That's why we are, and we're going to try to go do our best and, just see what chips fall.
All right. So he's like, they're not going to prepare. We're mediocre.
Yeah. Again, the whole, I don't think anybody is watching this game expecting ULM to come out and just dogfight Texas. But as a coach, to call your own team and your own players mediocre, mediocre group of 5 team, whatever. Come on, man. That can't be good for the psyche for the players. Maybe they're tougher. Maybe I don't know if they accepted their fate. I don't know. It just seems like a silly thing to say. I
think that speaks a little bit. It's a little shade to like the Texas entitlement, or where you could just put a Texas jersey on and walk out on the field. Like the old, there was some of that a few years ago. Like there was that where you think because you have Texas on your jersey, you're going to go out and beat teams, and then you lose because you have that entitlement. It's not like that anymore, right? Sark says it every day. No one's going to hand them anything. The players are talking about how being ranked number 1 doesn't mean a thing right now. Like, it doesn't mean a thing if you don't go out and work, and that's not the goal. The goal is not to be ranked number 1 in week 4, right?
Right.
So,
well, it was like that lineman for Iowa State. Oh, trying to throw shade at Texas's 5 stars going up against 3 and 4 stars.
Oh, yeah.
And I would say, how'd that work out for you, buddy? Again, maybe, that's a good point, Rocky. Maybe he was trying to be sarcastic in that moment. To me, it just didn't play. It just didn't hit. It just came off as like, I don't know. And if you're going to say
a little under shade, I think, but
yes, but if you're going to say that, then at least allude to the fact that Texas thinks we're just a mediocre group of 5, right? Texas is going to treat us like a mediocre, not saying we are a mediocre group of 5. It's just crazy wording to me from a coach, man.
It's funny. It's funny. Yeah. Anyway. All right.
Yeah.
So how do you think back to Texas offense?
Sure.
What do you think about, what are you looking for? Like, if you had expectations and the balance between the run and the pass this week, or what do you think, how do you think Texas is going to attack this game offensively? Who are they going to highlight? Are they going to have a pretty balanced attack? Are they going to go heavy one way? What are you looking at?
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty balanced. Like we talked a little bit earlier. I do think Sark's going to try to spread the ball around. I think he's going to, definitely balance it out because, again, we know Arch is capable. We know he's good, but he is still unseasoned, right? He hasn't had those starts. He hasn't had a ton of in-game experience with Texas. So you want to minimize the potential for big mistakes. You want to minimize the potential for misreads. You want to minimize the potential for interceptions or turnovers or quarterback pressures. So at the same time, you want to take advantage of the talent that you have. So yeah, I think it's going to be, I don't think we're going to see a heavy throw game by any sense. I think we're going to see a good blend of running and throwing. And I do think, if anything, it's going to favor the run a little bit. But again, considering that limited running back room and the injuries that we're contending with, you got to have some of that balance. That's why I'm thinking it's going to be pretty even between the two. How about you? What are you thinking?
I think they're going to find a way again to keep those receivers involved in the run game to help with the depth issues at running back. And I think they're going to let Arch swing it around. I think they're going to let Arch be Arch. He's going to use that NFL style pocket presence and go start making some good throws. Show what you can do. All right. So we'll make our pick for this game at the end when we do our college football picks against the spread. So we'll give our predictions, score predictions, and some other predictions. But let's we mentioned a few minutes ago about the challenge. Fortunately, the staff is very experienced in long seasons, right? And the challenge of making it through a long season. So just based off the first few weeks' performances, Texas is flipping and raising their odds of winning future games. And this is all just projection, betting, talking points. It doesn't determine any of this because we saw a few weeks ago Notre Dame was 20-something point favorites at home and got beat. So this doesn't mean a thing if you don't go out there and play.
Right.
So they have this weekend, Texas has a 98% chance of winning. Looking ahead, they're favored to beat OU, 85% chance of winning at OU, 70%. This doesn't make any sense. 70% chance of beating Georgia at home. That's crazy. 95% to beat Vanderbilt at Vanderbilt, 96% to beat Florida at home, 87% to beat Arkansas at Arkansas. That's going to be way tougher than 76%. Pretty good shot of beating University of Kentucky, 95%. And then right now about 82% to win at A&M. So what does that mean to you when you see these spreads that right now Texas is favored in most games by a lot?
What does it mean to me? It makes me chuckle and then go, yeah, I'm not going to buy into any of that. It's just, we're just going into week 4 here. I don't know. I think for me, I think the most surprising one for me was how much that close Georgia game against Kentucky affected the probability of Texas winning. I do think Texas has a good chance against Georgia, but I wouldn't call it a 70% chance going up against them. I think that really close game against Kentucky, which you have, again, as a potential upset. So shout out to you. And
I have it on upset watch, but
yeah,
I have it on alert. Pay attention to that game.
Yeah, you had that.
Don't take it lightly.
Right. You had Kentucky preseason. You said that's a game that worries me where it's at in the season, and Kentucky is better than people think they are. So good on you for looking at that. But as far as Georgia goes, I think Georgia's going to respond well to what I would call an embarrassing showing on their part, right? That game against Kentucky for Georgia was not up to Georgia's expectations, not up to their standards. And I think Kirby Smart's going to be the guy that has them ready and going, hey, get it together, because win and survive, right? Win in advance. But that to me is going to be, I'd be willing to bet that line's going to move a little bit, and we're going to see Georgia come out this week and just absolutely with their ass on fire and have something to prove. So of course we know this is
Georgia and Bama are off this weekend.
Yeah. So they've got it.
But
then they have an extra weekend to get pissed about it, right?
They get Bama next. So as long as Texas has a strong showing against ULM at home, they should stay number 1 for another week.
Yeah.
And depending on how that Bama Georgia game goes, there could be a new number 1 coming out of that game. So we'll see. So go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the only other games that really surprised me are kind of like you said. Arkansas, I know Arkansas isn't a great proven team at this point, but I think they're better than what preseason expectations held. And anytime you go into Fayetteville, especially as Texas, anytime you're going into Fayetteville, that's going to be a dogfight. That's going to be a hard game. I mean, we learned that a couple years ago for the folks that aren't familiar with the old Southwest Conference rivalry and just how much Arkansas hates Texas. That's the game for me that I have circled on my calendar to go, you really got to prep for this game. Don't let this be a trap game. Texas has to go in and really show out early and often, because that is, to me, that game is going to be a really tough one for Texas. To your point too, Texas having a 95% chance of beating Kentucky. I don't know. Let's see how Kentucky plays out. That's a little bit later in the season for us, but let's see how that plays out, because I've got to agree with you, Rocky. So far, what we've seen, I think Kentucky's a better team than what preseason pundits were giving them credit for. So we'll see how that plays out. We'll see how that goes up and down. But if you had told me a couple years ago that this was Texas's probability throughout their season going into the SEC, I would have said, are you freaking kidding me? Texas having no less than, what's the lowest probability? It looks like
for an SEC game,
yeah.
The lowest probability, of course, is Georgia. After that, it looks like OU and A&M are both around.
Which makes sense as rivalry games.
Rivalry games, yeah.
But if you would have told me Texas's hardest SEC game, coming into, or hardest team that they're going to play, hardest SEC opponent that they're going to play, that Texas has a 70% chance of winning, I don't know that I would have
go up and down. Even a couple weeks ago,
right.
It was closer to 50-50 or
right.
more like 52% Georgia. And they're still favored in the Vegas odds, so like by 2, I think. So, they're evenly matched. Texas home field advantage has to be huge that day. Let's take it one game at a time, but that's exciting.
Yeah. But again, I think like we've said, the proof is in the pudding. You're seeing the progression of Texas and really this building, this vision coming to life that Stark had when he took over. I've seen a few Texas fans, there were some questions at the beginning of the season. Is Texas going to be better this year than they were last year? Some folks are kind of arguing about that. How are you feeling, Rocky? Do you think Texas is in a better place this season going into the SEC than they were last season being in the Big 12?
Absolutely. The defensive statistics already vastly improved. The skill has improved. The transfer portal players like Makuba and Bond, like they're making a massive impact. But not only that, the freshmen that are coming in, and Anthony Hill Jr., one of the leading tacklers. We talked about Jarrett Gibson with carrying the ball, breaking up stats like that, which he has the opportunity with Baxter's being out with the injury, and Christian Clark also out, and then Jaden Blue needing rest. So he's taken advantage of that opportunity and getting really valuable reps. But the depth, Alex January getting reps on the D line, like there's just so much youth that is contributing valuable time right now. So I just think the depth alone, it tells you that Texas is looking good. But looking good through the first 3 games like last year. I think going into Alabama was a bigger win than going into Michigan, because Alabama was a much better team last year than Michigan is this year.
Yeah,
but there's still big wins on the road in hostile environments, so.
No, I'd agree with that. So I want to give a quick shout out to Censored Horn on Twitter. He had a nice stat to compare. So Texas had 25 touchdown passes in 14 games last year, right? So 25 touchdown passes through 14 games all of last season. Texas currently through 3 games has 13 touchdown passes just through 3 games. So I think we're definitely starting to see that offense really pick up, roll. Texas is limiting their mistakes compared to where we were at last season. Offense is rolling. Defense is really showing up and shutting down other teams. Now, again, I agree. I 1,000% agree with you that last year's Alabama was a better team than this year's Michigan. So, but to that point, it was still a hostile environment. Texas went in, they handled business against a top 25 team at the time, top 10 team. And I think it counts and shows towards where Texas is going and just the confidence level of this team. I think part of the retraining that Sark had to do was teaching these guys to have fun again and teaching these guys how to win again, right?
Yeah.
You go through a 5-7 season, a few years ago, and it gets tough when you've been through some of those hardships and you can see the vision, but you're not quite there yet. You've got to learn how to win again. And I think Texas we're seeing that now. They know how to win again. They know how to have fun and they know how to roll. So
I think one thing we haven't seen yet, which is a good thing because this is a good team so far. One thing we haven't seen yet is adversity. They really haven't had to overcome any real adversity yet. They went into Michigan in hostile. It was loud. It was, the students were packed. It was a loud, big environment, but they went down the field. No problem. They missed the field goal for the first drive. That's okay. They knew what they had. Even in the stands, when they went down the field and they missed the field goal, normally we'd be like, "Oh, we need those points." Normally we'd be panicking that we're on the road and we need every field goal or every point. But that was the first time, I think, at least for myself and forever, that I just said, okay, we'll be okay. We're moving the ball. They have a plan. We'll get down the field again, right? I was so cool and calm about it, and the guys in front of us turned around and they're laughing, or whatever you say. I'm like, it's okay.
We're fine.
He never misses. He missed one. It's all right. It just felt cool, like we could be calm about it because they just had so much confidence and they were so precision down the field. So I knew it would come back. And it came back, and it came back, and it came back. And Texas dominated that game, right, off on the offense and defense. But it just felt like this team was, even in that hostile environment, they didn't, like at Alabama, there was adversity. Here in Michigan, it didn't feel like they ever had really to face any real adversity. So that's something that they haven't had yet this season.
I mean,
hopefully they don't have any on Saturday.
I would argue that losing Baxter and then having Blue.
No, I mean on field, on the grind. Like, yes, losing Baxter was a challenge, but I'm talking about like on the field, in the game, down by 2, or something that they really have to overcome in the game.
Gotcha.
They haven't had in the game adversity.
Yeah.
So, yes, they've had challenges of injuries, but time to plan and overcome those. Yeah. So hopefully this weekend there's still no adversity.
Yeah. I don't want any close
Michigan.
games.
Yeah.
Like I said at the beginning of this season, I'm ready for boring Texas football again. I'm ready for Texas going in and just steamrolling the opponents they're supposed to steamroll and to show up and show out. So far, I feel like we're on track for that. We're seeing that, right? So again, we'll make our picks a little bit later in the show for this game for ULM at Texas. But I am going to ask you this question that might hint towards your pick. Does Texas hang 70 this game? Are they going to pull a Tennessee? You don't think they'll hang 70?
No.
All right. So, all right, we'll put our picks in a little bit.
If we were playing, if it was Quinn playing Tech, I'd say yes, drop 70 on them.
Woof.
Right,
You're giving Tech less credit than ULM. That's a choice. All right.
No, I'm just saying that's somebody that you go for it. You try to hang 70 on them.
Sure.
All right. So let's, before we move on to our broader college football talk, let's give a shout out to our friend Chuck and his beautiful ranch. I'll play the video while you tell him about it.
Yeah. So we are really excited to share this property with you guys. This is a great place, 120 acres land. We're at Rock Diamond Estate. That out in the country, quick drive off property that you can actually for F1 any activities in Austin. So yeah, music's a little loud there, but
the music's loud. So tell them again. I'll make it without the music next time.
No, that's okay.
We saw the beautiful property.
Yeah, we just wanted to show you all that property. It is available for rent. Again, that's Rock and Diamond S Ranch. You can visit them at rockanddiamondsranch.com. Or you can give them a call at 512-694-1969 to reserve your perfect Texas weekend. Again, it can sleep up to 14. You saw the main home there. There's 2 other cabins as well. Sleeps up to 14 with a truly Texas authentic experience. You can go wildlife watching. There's deer everywhere. You can go fishing. My Longhorns are out there. Our Longhorns are there. You can visit them. You can feed them. You can come say hi. Again, it's got a great indoor-outdoor patio area for cooking, eating, entertaining. It is just a really wonderful option. And especially with as crazy as the Austin hotels are getting, the Austin Airbnbs are getting for Texas games, this is great bang for the buck in the beautiful hill country out in Blanco. So there's a ton to do. Again, we'd love for you to check them out. That is Rockin' Diamond S Ranch. Again, go to rockindiamondsranch.com or give Chuck Smith a call at 512-694-1969 to reserve your Texas weekend today.
Nice.
Gotta
And
love
I
it.
think I just fixed the video where there's no audio. So
Yeah,
do
well,
that
we'll
next time.
we'll worry
Now
about
I
it
know
next
how to
time.
do it.
No, I love it.
I'm
Well,
like, why
again,
did I just save with the audio? Because I thought it would be like more mellow music.
no,
in the
it's not mellow.
background.
It's very
No,
intense.
it's music. So
So,
yes.
and we've both been out to the Rock and Diamond S, obviously, and it is, I got to tell you, like, I've spent some time out there. I've spent, a few evenings out, and I've had my dogs out there. They've had a great time. It really is a cool property. So really encourage people to check that out and reserve your space today.
Yeah,
So,
I saw you looking at an opportunity, like what would people pay for this or that, like a weekend out there, Georgia tickets, like a whole package.
yeah, we're talking about putting it together for sure. I mean, there is potential for a Georgia package that would include 4 tickets to the Georgia at Texas game on the 45-yard line, which is, I mean, they're phenomenal tickets. We would pick you up from the airport, take you out there, transport you, provide a little bit of food, have that great Texas experience, take you to and from the game so you don't have to worry about drinking. You'd have a tailgate experience baked all into it. So if you're interested in that, definitely give Chuck a call. Tell him that Fire the Cannon sent you and have some conversations and see if you can't get that booked, because it is going to be an amazing weekend and things are out of control in Austin with F1 being there too. So gotta love it. All right, Rocky, let's jump in. We've got a few things that we want to look at, some college football week 4 previews and picks. I'm just going to ask you up front, are there any games that you're really other than Texas, obviously, are there any games that you're really excited to see that are intriguing to you this week?
Yes, there. I have right now. Well, I have several games, and I'm looking at like, ooh, which one's the most? But I have several that are pretty intriguing. And I don't know if you want to kind of take them in order. We can start with like Friday night and then go from there.
Yeah, I mean,
There's a few really good games. So
yeah.
2 undefeated teams are going at it Friday night. 2 ranked undefeated teams on Fox at 7 p.m. Central Time. It's 3-0, number 24 Illinois against 22 Nebraska, also 3-0. Nebraska are touchdown favorites, 7.5-point favorites. What do you think about that? We see all the hype now at Nebraska. They're bringing in some big time recruits now, and they have a pretty night game. What do you think about that game?
Listen, I'm probably going to get some hate from Texas fans for saying this. I like Nebraska. I've got some great Nebraska friends. I think football is better. I think college football is better when Nebraska is good. And I think Matt Rule's really got that team on the same path. I think we're going to see, he did great things at Baylor, which I hate to say, but he did. I mean, he's a great coach. He's got vision.
Good things, not great things, but
for Baylor, where they were, I'm just saying. So I think that, he's really going to have Nebraska rolling. And I, for one, again, I would love to see Texas-Nebraska matchups in the future. I think that's a rivalry, if you can call it that I miss. I miss going to Lincoln. I miss seeing 2 good historic blue bloods go at it. Of course, didn't hurt that Texas held the upper hand in that series pretty heftily. But yeah, I'm excited about this. I think, Nebraska back in the top 25, they're 3-0, especially considering where they've been the past few years. I think there's something cooking up in Lincoln. Nebraska's favored by 7.5 in that against Illinois. Are we picking right now, or we just want to talk about them?
Yeah, no, let's pick them. Let's talk and pick.
Yeah, I think Nebraska covers this. Again, it's a home game against Illinois. I know these teams are pretty evenly matched, but I'm taking Nebraska and I'm taking them to cover. I think there's just that excitement's back in Lincoln. I think that yet another Memorial Stadium. So Lincoln's, Nebraska's stadium is Memorial Stadium, but I think it's going to be rocking. They're going to be excited. I think they are hungry for their team to finally be back. So I think that's going to be a really tough environment to play. And yeah, I've got Nebraska. How about you?
I also have Nebraska winning and covering at home, and I think that home field advantage is what's going to put them over the edge. There's so much excitement right now is Nebraska back? Nebraska is back. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see over the season. They're in the Big 12, right? I mean, Big 10. So they have a big games ahead. So
They
if
do.
they can get past Illinois here, notch another conference win, I think that would be good for them on their start to a little return. That would be good. I agree too. I think Texas is, I mean, college football is great, right? When the best of the best are being the best. USC, Miami, Texas, a lot of the teams that are back or fighting their way back. So Nebraska being one of them, like Miami and USC. So yeah, I have Nebraska also winning at home. All right,
Yeah.
so Saturday, lots of great games, I think, and some are great because they're so bad. Like car wrecks. You want to watch the car wreck to see who
It'll be great,
car wreck.
fun football to watch, but maybe not good football, right?
Yeah, it'll be fun. Okay, so let's talk about 11 a.m. You're going to start the day with 1-2 Florida, who just got handed everything at home by A&M, against 1-2 Mississippi State. Both at the bottom of the SEC right now, with their opening SEC games being losses. ESPN 11 a.m. Florida is actually favored to go into Mississippi State and win that game. Has Florida even picked a quarterback? Because they flip flop all over the place. I don't know.
Has A&M? Yeah, no, I don't know.
We'll talk about that when we pick the
about it.
A&M game, but they have
Yeah.
QB issues too. 1-2 Florida, 1-2 Mississippi State. Florida's favored by 6.
Yeah, again, this one to me is a toss-up. It's the battle of the bottom feeders at this point. I have not seen anything from Florida that gives me confidence that they know how to win a football game. They're not playing good football right now. That being said, neither is Mississippi State. So for Texas fans, this is going to be a game to watch because it gives you a preview of two teams that are on Texas's schedule that come to DKR. So good to watch in that sense. But if I have to pick one right now, I think it's a toss-up. I'm going to give Florida the win on this just because they're at home. That spread is 6. Yeah, I say they win by a touchdown. So I think they cover, but barely. I don't see this being, again, I think it'll be a fun game to watch. I don't know that it'll be good football, though. So how about you? Who do you have in this game?
I mean, Mississippi State's coming off of home butt kicking to Toledo. Toledo's 3-0. There's a solid team, but losing 41-17 at home to Toledo. They lost at Arizona State. They thought they were starting off strong, beating Eastern Kentucky at home, but since then it's been a mess. Florida can't figure out which quarterback they have, but if they could pick the right one, Lagway, then they would probably win a little more. So I think they're going to pick the right quarterback this week because there's enough pressure from the fan base to do it. So
Sure.
I'm going to say Florida does go into Mississippi State, but I don't see how Florida scores 6 points total, much less wins by 6. I think this is going to be
Wow.
so.
All right.
I'm going to say Florida goes in and wins the game, but I don't see them winning by 6. It's probably going to be one of those 3-0 games at half, and then maybe they win 6-3. I don't know.
All right. I feel like this is one of those games that you can watch on mute and just have Yakety Sax, the song, playing over it the whole time. I feel like it's going to be that kind of,
Florida
that
was down
kind of
big to A&M. Florida was down big to A&M, like 20-0 or something like that at the half last week. And they came back in the third quarter, early fourth, and put up points. So I think they left their last game on a better note and found a little bit of rhythm going out to end that game. So maybe they take this into Mississippi State.
And a better loss than Mississippi State did, right?
Yeah. But
look, that's just where those programs are at right now.
Mississippi State's looking ahead to Texas already, so they're not going to be focused and prepared, Anyway.
All right.
So, okay, here is a big one. This is actually a big one. So, 2:30 CBS, 3-0 USC, number 11 USC, who we saw beat LSU opening weekend. They're at number 18 Michigan, 2-1. We know why they have that one. Michigan. USC is going into Michigan as 5.5-point favorites. We saw, especially when we were at Texas, they were going back and forth, confused with who's going to be their quarterback. They decided, the coach decided Alex Orji is starting versus USC. He's the running one. He's the one that we saw when Texas was playing them. Oh, here comes the run. Here comes Anna. Oh, here's the quarterback keeper. We could predict that a mile away. So maybe they've taught him expanded his package a little bit to throw more because they're going against USC who can throw the ball. So what are you seeing there? USC is favored by 5.5 going into Michigan. Michigan's already 2-1. Are they going to lose another game at home to a ranked team?
I don't know. Look, I think this is going to be a really interesting matchup with Orji being in. I think that it's definitely, you could predict what Michigan was doing based on the quarterback that they had in. If Michigan keeps up that 2 quarterback system, I think they remain predictable. But it seems to me that they're settling on a quarterback, and that makes it a little more difficult when you know that if it's one quarterback in the whole time, you're not necessarily going to know the play call based on who's in, right? That said, yes, I do think we're going to see him running because that's his specialty. I'm not convinced, just watching some of the throws he made against Texas, I'm not convinced that he has progressed that much leaps and bounds in a couple of weeks to be super competitive. I'm going to take USC in this. I think Lincoln Riley is starting to roll at USC. I think they're starting to find their identity. They're starting to understand who they are. And again, a Lincoln Riley team with a defense, which USC has this year, is definitely got some potential to be scary, scary teams. So, yeah, I think Texas broke that streak for Michigan. And I think it's going to be a tight game, but I see USC coming out on top on this. If not for anything, just because of the quarterback situation. So I'm going to take USC in this. And once again, I'm going to take USC to cover. That's a really close, small spread, 5.5. So I'm going to take USC. I'm going to say by 10 points on this one.
All right. So I'm glad you mentioned USC's defense. We know now that they have Danton Lynn as their defensive coordinator. He came over from UCLA. Now that they have him, I don't know why I didn't see much at UCLA, but wow, he's got it going on with the USC team. Like, their defense is so improved. Lincoln Riley's always been one where his offense, you need to score 70 because the defense is going to give up 68, right? But now it seems like he found a pretty good combination, which may save them in the recruiting process because there were some recruits that were not happy with the defense on the field. So This looks very much improved. We were saying that while we watched the LSU game. Wow, they're physical, they're in position, they're making plays. It feels like it's coming together for them on that side of the ball. And you have to have a complete team to go into Michigan and win at a place like that. So I also believe USC is too much firepower. Michigan's jumping back and forth, and now they're going with the quarterback that looks to be pretty one-dimensional so far. Maybe he has more. We haven't seen it yet. So I also think Lincoln Riley's going to dial it up. I hope the Michigan fans are there loud cheering 2:30 in the afternoon because, like last game, they'll be home in the third quarter. They'll be tucked in bed.
Tucked in bed to watch the late game.
Tucked in bed by the third quarter, like Texas sent them home early. I think they'll be going home early again in this one. I think USC is gonna handle business. I don't know if it's by double digits, but I could see 5.5 cover
easily. Yeah. All right, I like it. All right. There's also Arkansas. This again, Texas fans. This is a good game to keep an eye on to feel out where Arkansas truly is. Arkansas at Auburn. So 2-1 Arkansas. Auburn is 1-1. Auburn in this one is favored by 3. What are your thoughts on this?
Okay, so this is one a couple weeks ago, I had picked Arkansas to upset Oklahoma State, and they went in there, went toe to toe. Arkansas had a lead, blew it. Oklahoma State came back. They went to overtime. Like, it was a battle. Oklahoma State survived. I picked Arkansas to win that. And now I'm looking at this game. Also, is it 2:30? Yeah, 2:30 ESPN. I'm looking at this game against 1-1 or 2-1 Auburn. They lost to Cal. I'm going to say this is an upset. Arkansas goes in. I'm going to call them again. I'm trying to give Arkansas some love. Arkansas is going to go into on a road game, and they are going to get the upset. This time they're going to pull it off. Arkansas is going into Auburn and winning that game.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Arkansas is a better team than they've got credit for right now. I think they're definitely in a building phase, but I think they're better than expected. And I think you're going to start to see them roll a little bit more as the season goes on. So again, hopefully I'm wrong. I don't like seeing Arkansas excel at anything, but yeah, I don't think Auburn has got what it takes to go up against this team. So I agree with you. I think Arkansas goes in, and I think they win convincingly for the spread. They definitely beat the spread. Arkansas
is good for one upset a year. Go ahead and let them get it now.
Right. Get it out of the way.
Not when Texas comes to town.
Get it out of the way. All right.
All right, 3 o'clock on Fox. This is a big one. This could be determining where we start seeing some separation in the Big 12. Big 12 is up for grabs. The championship, Big 12 championship is up for grabs. There's so many teams with a legitimate shot. And this is going to be one of those separator games. 3-0, number 12, Utah at 14, Oklahoma State, also 3-0. Oklahoma State got that field goal favorite at home, 3.5 point favorites. What are your thoughts on this game? This is exciting, and there's a fun little side note on that one.
Yeah, I do want to say that I've enjoyed watching as a Texas fan who, as Texas fans, we get the brunt of a lot of hate, right, from everybody. It's been kind of fun sitting this one out and watch these two teams. Utah, I didn't know Utah fans were as mouthy as they are, but watching Utah,
I haven't seen anything. What are they saying?
It's been all over. I've seen some really hilarious stuff going on, but Utah and Okie Light have definitely been jawing back and forth quite a bit. So I think this is going to be a fun environment. Utah being in the Big 12 for the first year. I'll say Boone Pickens is a tough place to play when they're motivated. It's a small stadium. It's, there's not much runway on the sidelines. So the fans are right on top of you. It gets really loud. I know that Oklahoma calls them the Roughnecks, whatever OSU's version of that is with the paddles where they hit on the side of the stadium. It gets loud. It can be an intimidating place. And I think they're going to be hyped up with the high expectations of Utah at number 12 in the Big 12, number 12 period, but in the Big 12, their first year, and Oklahoma State at number 14. Man, I think T. Boone Pickens Stadium is going to be rocking. I think Oklahoma State covers this game. I think that's they're favored by 3.5. I take Oklahoma State to win this. It's going to be a tight game though. That 3.5 makes me nervous, but I'm going to say they win, but don't cover.
All right. But we can talk about the ages of the two quarterbacks, right?
Yeah.
Cam Rising, 7th year, Oklahoma State's quarterback, 7th year. So their combined ages are 49 years old. And College Sports only put by comparison, the two quarterbacks in the Colts Bears games total 44 years old. So these two quarterbacks have been in college forever, living their best life, playing college ball. Good for them.
Look, good for Cam Rising. But I do want to say, how do you feel about quarterbacks? Now, I know that this is kind of the last of the class that had that COVID year free, but do you feel like this is reasonable or fair to have 7th year quarterbacks, with the average age at I think they're 24 and 25 or something like that? I mean, that's NFL age. Do you feel like this is, I don't know. I think I'm getting a little bit of fatigue with the 6-7 year.
They're still good enough to play and eligible and still want to live that dream. Who cares? Like you just said, this is about to fade out. They got the COVID year extra. Most players, if they're still here, it's because they've had serious injuries where they had to miss serious time. So, and it's not very common. It's just a coincidence that we end up with the game where two of them are there. So It's not common enough to be like, oh, we got to go change a bunch of rules or anything. But if they still want to compete, and I mean, people say, well, they're older than NFL quarterbacks, but if they were as good as NFL quarterbacks, they'd be in the NFL by now. So
yeah, I agree.
Maybe the dream is still there for them, but
I don't know. At a certain point, to me, it's like, all right, man, that you're not taking this. Again, I appreciate, taking advantage of everything that you can, but to me, you're taking away opportunities from kids that are coming up. I don't know. I think I'm just suffering from fatigue of seeing the same player 7 years in a row now. I mean, Texas played Utah with Cam Rising. And
I think there's only one or two of these guys, a handful of these guys that are still really in the 6th or 7th year. I think what's taking away from the youngins more would be transfer portal, taking away from some of the straight out of high school spots. That's something that schools will have to balance later, but I'm fine. It's only a few and it's almost over because we're probably at the tail end, like you said, of this COVID year extensions. Yeah. All right. All right. We'll just fly through a few more games. ESPN2, 3-0 Cal against 0-3 Florida State. We'll see if any fans come to this game. We saw there were fans at Florida State with bags on their heads last week, but Florida State is favored. So maybe they're going to get their first win against undefeated Cal.
I don't know. Yeah, looking at this, I still am not convinced that Florida State is anywhere near decent. I don't know. I don't see how you're barely favored, or you're favored at home. I guess because it's home game. No, I'm sorry. I'm taking Cal in this game. I think Cal wins the game and covers.
All right. Yeah, I'm actually going to say Florida State wins at home. I don't know why, but I think at some point they can't lose everything, can they?
Can't
All
they,
right.
though?
Maybe, can they? I don't know. So here's an exciting one, and there is a little backstory on this one too. I love when there's side drama stories, and it happened too. 6:30 prime time, ESPN, happening at the same time that the Texas game, but on ABC. Number 6 Tennessee, who we see is dropping 70 points a game, is still giving up points. They're going to 15 OU, who is now really getting riddled by some injuries piling up. They do get Nick Anderson, wide receiver, back, who is one of the stars on their team that they were expecting to contribute. They're 3-0. Number 6 Tennessee is 3-0, but Tennessee is going in as touchdown favorites. So let's talk a little bit about the backstory. Heupel was fired by Bob Stoops from the staff a few years ago, and he said he's
former OU quarterback Heupel was
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. Uh-huh. No, yeah, it is interesting. I gotta think that Heupel's gonna have a little bit of that chip on his shoulder. Like we saw this Tennessee team hang up 70 recently. I am still not convinced that OU is at 15 right now. I still think that's a little favorable for OU. I don't see, given Tennessee being number 6, given the chip on the shoulder with Heupel, I think he's got a point to prove. He wants to go back to Norman and basically give an FU performance, I think. I don't see OU having any chance in this. I think 7 is honestly that's pretty gracious. I know it's because OU's at home, but I will say I don't think OU fans' excitement is real high and real hyped either. We've seen them in decent years where their home field advantage isn't a ton of an advantage. It doesn't get super loud there comparatively to some other places. I don't think OU fans are going to stay around very long, and I don't think they're going to be crazy loud for most of the game. So I've got Tennessee going in and just dominating this one. I think they win, and I think they way cover. 7 to me is way too low. I think Tennessee goes in and easily wins by double digits here. How about you?
I agree. I think there might be a little more battle, maybe even kind of close in halftime, because Venables is the defensive coach. He probably has a good plan for Heupel, but I think the skill level, the offensive skill level, will just pull away. This is actually pretty clever, kind of funny, sarcastic. The comment Heupel made about the Oklahoma fans. Who will listen to this real quick.
Should be a great crowd. It's a passionate fan base. I'm expecting them to be extremely quiet for us, out of respect to me and our program too. So.
Look, I love it. I love the sass. I love that he's teasing, because I think Heupel still is regarded highly by fans in Norman. But again, we have a mutual friend that worked at OU in compliance for a while, and just the comparison, she had worked at Texas and worked at OU, which is crazy to me. But she had said, look, game day experience is not loud. It's not enthusiastic. So maybe while he's saying that tongue in cheek, I think maybe they'll be a little loud early on, but I don't see OU fans making this a terrible, hard place to play for the whole game. I just don't. So we'll see how that plays out.
Well, we've seen some players and some former OU, people around the program talking about, we need to get hype, we need to get there, we need to be loud, we need to represent. Like, they have to, come on, fans, we can do it. So hopefully this is a big game. Not only is this OU's, this is their first SEC game, right? They're going to start with number 6 in the country, who is a huge offensive juggernaut right now, one of the most efficient teams, if not the most efficient team this week in offense efficiency. So if you have a defensive-minded coach, this should be strength against strength, right? So let's see. But Tennessee also has a fantastic defense too. They haven't played great Murray State and they haven't played juggernauts or anything, but to hold anyone to 0 and do it over and over, that's a solid defense. So let's see what OU can do. They're not all in on Jackson Arnold. They're not. The fans are not. Half the fans will try to twist a little stat to look good, but at the end of the day, his numbers are not great.
OU fans are tough on their quarterbacks. They
just are. And they should be, because they've had elite Heisman quarterback after quarterback after quarterback.
Yeah.
And they're not. They would take Quinn Ewers or they say they won't, but they would take Quinn Ewers.
They won't admit that publicly.
They would take Trey Owens. And I don't know if it's the system or what's happening. We know their O-line is being rebuilt right now. Tennessee has a strong D-line too, so that's going to be a fun matchup to watch. Yeah, Tennessee by more than 7.
Yeah,
maybe they're only up by 7 at half, but they're going to pull away.
Well, and I think too, let's just have the conversation right now. It's early in the season, but Tennessee is looking like an SEC contender. They really are. I mean, I'll be honest, just up front, I'm glad we don't have them. Yeah, I'm glad we don't have them on the schedule this year. I think that would be a big dogfight. I'm looking forward to Knoxville. I'm looking forward to playing them. But, Texas has, in my opinion, a favorable SEC schedule. I'm glad we don't have to see Tennessee this year, because they're looking like a monster up there in Knoxville. So.
And if you don't think Heupel wants to run that score up on OU.
Yeah.
And also, like you mentioned earlier, you said you saw lots of Twitter fighting or whatever between Utah and Oak State. I've seen a lot going on OU and Tennessee.
Absolutely.
They're giving it to each other. All right. Absolutely. So yeah, we both agree Tennessee will win and cover. The Bowling Green, we don't have to pick this one, but top 25 team, Texas A&M, even though they lost to Notre Dame at home, they are ranked. They're 23-point favorites against Bowling Green.
Quarterback. Yeah, their quarterback situation, it looks like Reed is going to start. As a Texas fan, I want to see Wigman in, but for A&M, I think Reed is a better option. I just do.
Yeah. Did Elko really say that they're going to be game by game week decisions of who's starting? Oh my God.
Yep. Basically, you're saying you don't have confidence in your starting
in either one.
Right.
Yeah. And you're not going to develop one and stick with them.
Yeah. It's
all right. So I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Another game that could have some separation in the Big 12, 2-1 teams, Baylor at Colorado. That should be kind of interesting, only because there will be starting to get more separation in the Big 12 race. Colorado's 2-point favorites. Let's see what happens there. Another one that is sneaky good, we've seen Kansas State has been pretty solid. They're undefeated, 3-0. It's a late game because they're going to BYU, who is also 3-0 right now. Kansas State are 6.5-point favorites, but I'm calling the upset here. I think BYU has enough at home. I think BYU is going to upset Kansas State. They're on a roll. Kansas State survived. Kansas State has had long, tough games. I think I'm going BYU to upset Kansas State.
Oh, I like the call. I appreciate that, but I'm still going to take Kansas State in this one. I think they're a legitimate 13 team. I think Kansas State has been on the cusp of being really good for a long time, and now they have an opportunity in a conference that OU and Texas are no longer in. So I think Kansas State goes into BYU. I think it's going to be a dogfight. I think it's going to be a great game, but I do have KSU winning this game. I'm going to stay with the 6.5-point spread. I think they win, but don't cover.
All right. I think either Kansas State wins by 20 or BYU wins. Nothing in between.
Nothing in between. All right.
Nothing in between. All right. Just a few games of note, just because it's happening in college football. But these games don't matter. Marshall at 3, Ohio State. Really? NC State goes to 21, Clemson. That could be interesting. UCLA at 16, LSU. Georgia Tech with their big win against Florida State that broke them. They're at 19, Louisville, and then Georgia Southern at 5, Ole Miss. So again, we've mentioned it earlier, but Bama and Georgia are off this week. They play each other next week at Alabama, so they're both getting ready for that game. All right. Okay, so before we wrap up for the day, let's talk about a few fun of our favorite stories that we have going on. So one of the things that first we want to do is give a huge shout out to our friend Hayden Connor. You want to tell them about that, Megan?
Yeah, absolutely. So Hayden is actually up for the All-State Good Works Award for his work with Pause with a Cause. He created his Pause with a Cause events, and that benefits the ASPCA and I believe, what was the other? There's two.
Austin Pets Alive.
Austin Pets Alive, but there's another one as well. So anyway, Hayden's done some really great work. He has organized all this himself, gotten players to come out, including Arch, hosting these events to raise money, raise funds, do toy and food donation drives for pets in need around the Austin area. So we will post this to the Fire the Cannon Twitter account. Please go in. It is actually a fan influenced award. So go in, vote for our guy Hayden. You can vote once a day until the voting ends. So please go in, make sure that we give him that Texas advantage. Tell him thank you. And again, rock on for not just being a big guy. He's got a big heart too. Very cool to see that. So congrats to Hayden for being nominated for that really cool award.
All right. Let's see. The Stanford volleyball. This is a kind of a crazy story. We've talked about this before with this conference realignment. There are teams now that are having to travel just thousands and thousands of miles. So they put together this map to show the most travel for fall sports in a season, and I have it right here. I'm going to play it for you. Okay, here it is. I'm going to play it for you. They're showing that Stanford has to travel. Of course, it's going to pause on me. Anyway, that Stanford is like going to travel all back and forth over the country. 33,000. Here it is. 33,700 miles this season. Stanford volleyball. How is this good for the students? Anyways, it goes on and on and on. The map of them flying back and forth all over the country. And there's a couple times where they'll stop and get a couple games in there. Plus, they're also in the West Coast time zone, and they have a Stanford education they're trying to get. That's insane. That's the volleyball team.
Yeah. Again,
1,700 miles.
Yeah, we've had this conversation about it with this conference realignment and especially the Pac-12 moving all over the place. I just don't see how this is a sustainable model. I think it is going to eventually affect their recruiting. You know, we talk about football all the time. Of course, we focus on football, and that's a lot of traveling for the football team. But we've brought this up on the show before. Teams that play midweek games, teams that are playing 3-4 games a week. You know, you talk about volleyball. When we get into it, it'll be baseball season as well. I just don't see how that's sustainable with a student athlete schedule. On top of all the travel, how is that healthy? How is that good for the sport? How is that good for the athletes? I don't know, man. That seems like a lot. It'll be interesting to see if that fatigue sets in and how quickly it does, if so.
Yeah, it's also going to be interesting to compare they're always one of the best in the country, Stanford. Texas just went to Stanford and got swept, right? Like they're one of the best teams in the country, but let's see how that fatigue of the travel in the season, shows up on their record. You know, like, are they starting to drop matches that they were favored to win and things like that? Because eventually they're humans. Like it's that kind of travel and schedule and, getting home in the middle of the night and not sleeping enough. And that will wear on anybody, even young athletes, it'll wear on them. All right. So the next thing, let's talk about Bijan. Lifetime Longhorn Bijan Robinson, the good and the bad, right? Not his bad, the system he's in. But let's look at this blow up block he had.
Gotta love it.
So he's not getting enough carries. He's not being used enough in the system. So what can he do? Blow someone up on a block, and that's what he's doing.
And look, again, shout out to him for being the guy that's going to step up where he's needed and doing what's asked of him. But can we call this football malpractice? Because you've got Bijan Robinson on your team, who's great at evading tackles. He's a strong runner, obviously. Of course, little Texas bias in there, but we're not wrong. He was the first running back taken in his draft, right? When he was, yeah. So you've got this incredible talent, and you're going to use him to block more than run. Again, you got to have a well-rounded game. You always want a running back that has the ability to block. So good on him for perfecting that art. But man, this just seems like a huge missed opportunity for Atlanta to really use a generational talent that they have. What are you thinking, man? Every time I watch it, I get mad.
I mean, we were sad when he went to Atlanta, right? Like we knew he could be, when you have other teams with great offensive systems that really, like, you have San Francisco or all these teams where they really know how to utilize backs and find ways to get them involved. And Bijan is a versatile back. He can catch in the backfield. You can move him around, and you can see him, like, he's just so versatile. And they have him standing there pushing on big guys. Like, like you said, malpractice. What a waste. What a waste. I hope enough people, I hope they figure out what they're doing. I don't know.
I hope he doesn't waste his talent there in Atlanta. And so far, in my opinion, he could be utilized a lot better than they're using him right now.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about two things dear to your heart. Ace Whitehead, Boogie, and Michigan State.
Yeah,
all right, let's talk about Boogie.
Yeah. So if you guys missed it on our podcast last Monday, or this past Monday, really great news on the 40 acres. Ace Boogie is recovering from his surgery really well and started throwing the ball around just this week. So really excited to see him back out there. This will be his senior year. And he was suffering from some arm numbness and stiffness, and powered through it last season, was really clutch for Texas when we needed him, but was really suffering through some pain. So he had surgery to correct that. And he's just now at the point that he's throwing the ball again, getting some work in. So really good to see him. Excited to have him back on the bump this season and contributing to Texas under the new head coach. So good to see him. Congratulations, Ace. Keep grinding, keep working. Happy to have you back, man. And then, Michigan State, we're going to make a shift back. I like to talk about uniforms. I like to talk about, does this look good? Maybe it's the graphic designer in me. I get really picky about uniforms. I don't want Texas ever to do alternates, but I can appreciate a good alternate when you've got one. So I was surprised this week to find out that Michigan State, even though they are on the road, they are playing at Boston College. They're actually going to be in their home greens. So they're in all green, head to toe, helmet, jersey, pants, is all that Michigan State green, because Boston College is actually doing something really cool. Every year they have what they call their bandana uniforms, and it honors a lacrosse player, Wells Crowther, who later, after he graduated from Boston College, became a firefighter. And during 9/11, he saved at least a dozen people and was actually, killed at 9/11. So every year, Boston College does a uniform that honors him. He was known for wearing a red bandana, just 24/7, always had it on. So it's actually a really cool uniform. It's a white uniform, and the letters themselves are red, but they're bandana. So they got the paisley print, which is cool. Yeah, very cool. When you know the story behind it, it's just a really neat thing. So interesting swap there. But yeah, I thought that was a really neat tribute. And I hadn't heard about that before from Boston College. So
I didn't know it was a thing either. I wonder how long they've been doing it.
Well, I mean, it's been at least a few years, but I mean, obviously he passed on 9/11. So it's been some time since he has passed away.
Did he pass on 9/11, or did he help save lives on 9/11? Oh, he passed away himself.
That's what I understand, is that he passed on 9/11. Now, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the way that I understand it. So really interesting. And more uniform news. Sorry, I know this is kind of crazy, but Central Texans might appreciate this. Rocky, you especially. Have you seen the rumors swirling around your Texas State Bobcats?
Oh, the throwbacks?
Yeah, so they're rumored to be wearing a Southwest Texas, the SWT logo, Bobcat throwback uniform this weekend. Listen, I still struggle to call it Texas State. It's become a little bit easier since you went there and got your doctorate there, but I'm still definitely a Southwest person. I call them Southwestern, right? But so they will have that SWT logo on the helmets with some throwbacks. I think that'd be kind of cool to see for Central Texas. And Texas State having themselves a little season. You want to talk about that?
I mean, they had an opportunity to beat Arizona State the other day, and that would have been exciting because that could have put them in that group of 5, maybe sort of playoff spot. So now they're going to have a little more
mediocre.
Now they're going to have a little more uphill battle. But all right, so we have one more fun story we'll share before we wrap up. But this one's kind of funny. There was an 8-year-old girl who was found driving herself to Target. And I think, like, how funny, because if I was a kid, so apparently she took the family car, went on a busy roads, and her parents had marked her, said that she was missing or something, and then they saw a kid on the people recorded that there was a small child driving, and then they thought, well, maybe there was ended up finding that she had taken herself to Target. Which is like, I wonder what she would have wanted that she needed so bad from Target that she took off in the car to Target.
Well, and like, what was she going to do when she got there, right? Like, did she have her little wallet, her little savings that she was going to go in and buy something from Target? I love this. I can actually relate with this little 8-year-old. I really appreciate her. I was a good kid when I was younger, but a bit rebellious. And I was definitely
crazy, dangerous, scary.
For sure.
Drove herself to Target, and that was in Bedford, Ohio.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I was definitely a latchkey. My parents worked quite a bit, so during the summertime, I was home by myself. Did summer camps for a while, but you reach a certain age that you're not doing summer camps. So when I was 14, for about a summer, I would take the car, the '89 Honda Accord, and I would drive that thing around, go visit my friends, bebop around, make sure the car was parked back properly in the driveway, exact same spot where I left it. You know, I did that for a whole summer when I was a kid at 14 years old. And the way that I got caught, again, thank goodness social media wasn't around. But the way that I got caught was that I had a blowout tire. The tire blew out while I was driving at 14 years old in like downtown Round Rock. So I had to get the car home. And it was pretty obvious at that point that tires don't just explode, right? So my parents had a fun time with that. And that was my form of rebelliousness. So again, maybe that 8-year-old is a child after my own heart. And again, shout out to her for knowing how to get to Target. Like, that's my question. Did she make it all the way? Or was she just trying to get to Target driving around?
She was in Target. She was in Target shopping.
You have to say that's pretty impressive that an 8-year-old could find her way from her home to Target driving. I mean, I'm impressed by it, at least. Like, it is scary, but I'm impressed by it. So, just a sec. Rocky, you're still on mute. There you go.
I know. I was just telling him to close the door. All right. So we still need to we'll wrap up by making our Texas score predictions. And maybe a couple of like bold predictions about the game, something that we're shocked that we won't be shocked if we see it, but everybody else will be shocked if they see it.
All right.
So I'll go first with my bold prediction for the game. I think we're going to get two interceptions, and one's going to be by someone who hasn't had an interception before. Okay. I think it's going to be, I don't know. Something about Ty Anthony Smith having a little breakout this game just speaks to me. So I'm going to say Ty Anthony Smith has a couple of big plays this game. Start building his little stock a bit. And I'm going to say there's going to be somebody who hadn't had an interception before gets one in this game. What's your bold prediction?
I like it. I don't know if this is so bold, but I think we're going to see mine's defensive as well. I think we're going to see Texas defense log 3 sacks in this game. I think they're going to get after him. I think they're going to pressure, and I just don't think ULM is going to be able to hold our big guys and rushing towards them. So along with that, I do think so. Texas 3 sacks. I think we're going to increase those numbers. All the worries can go away that Texas hadn't had quite the high sack rate that we had hoped for at this point. And I do agree with you in that sense. I do think Tex Caliber, the turnover sword, is going to stay full for this game. I love it. So that's my.
What do you have for total yards of offense?
Oh, Texas is over 500 yards. I think Texas is over 500 yards total offense. I just think we see Arch Manning put on a clinic. I think he's going to be protected well. I think he's going to find a lot of receivers, and I think they're going to be playing well. So in my mind, I would take the over on 500 yards total offense. How about you?
I'm looking at maybe 350 yards, receiving yards. Most of that will be yards after the catch because he's going to have them wide open in space.
Sure.
I'm looking at about 350 yards of offense, and I'll say 170 rushing, which just puts them over that 500 mark. Yeah,
I like it. I like that we're on the same vibe with that.
All right. So score prediction. We'll wrap up with our score prediction.
Yeah, I still think Texas isn't going to break the 60-point mark, but so I'm going to go yet again with a high prediction. I think Texas is 59. I think ULM is 3 points. I think this is a way lopsided win for Texas. I think they cover the 45. Again, looking at that 44.5, 45 point spread, you look at it at first, you get sticker shock, but the more I think about it, the more I look at this matchup, the more I look at how uneven these teams are. I mean, it is a mediocre group of 5 team, right? The more I look at it, I think 45 is absolutely reasonable. So I think Texas covers that, but doesn't quite break that 60-point mark. Like I said, 59-3. That's what I got. Texas winning. How about you?
Wow, you have a huge cover.
Yeah, I have supreme confidence in this team against ULM. So.
All right. Well, I mean, Louisiana Monroe's averaging 31 points a game. They've scored 30 and 32. So I'm not saying they won't score anything. So I'm more in there. They're going to be in the, I hate to give them a touchdown, but I got to give them at least a touchdown. I have them at least 10 points. So I'm more of the I'll say 48-10. 48-10. Maybe they get a late touchdown.
So not covering. Okay.
I know, right?
No, look, I appreciate it. Me looking at it, I think UTSA is a better team than ULM. And I think Texas handled UTSA pretty handily. So I think we see something similar play out here. But we will see. It's you always have great picks. I've been doing all right here recently.
You've done pretty well.
I was pretty close with Michigan, pretty close with UTSA. So I like it. All right. Well, we appreciate y'all. Again, please be sure to like and subscribe. This is our new channel on YouTube. We are live every Thursday from 3 to 5 p.m. Central Time. And of course, we've got pre-recorded podcasts dropping every Monday. So be sure to check that out. It's on the channel. Like, subscribe. That's at Fire the Cannon Podcast on YouTube, and on Twitter and Instagram. We are Fire the Cannon 1. Again, another shout out. We really appreciate y'all for being here and for commenting and for following us on our new channel. And we will definitely see you guys next week, and see you Saturday if we see you there.
Yay, Saturday. We'll be back in time for the game.
Absolutely. Right. So until then, y'all, I'm Megan.
I'm Rocky.
And we are Fire the Cannon.
Fire the Cannon.